Hello and welcome back to the Reapers. Today we're in the F-14B Tomcat and we're looking at the flight instruments. Now we're going to do full cockpit tours of the front and the rear cockpits where we look at all the switches and buttons and talk about everything, but that's going to be another time when we've learned it better. For the time being, you guys have just requested a look at the main flight instruments to operate the aircraft. So your main flight instrument is going to be your HUD here. I've currently got it in just basic course mode at the moment. We can see the horizon line there. We can see the longitudinal axis of the aircraft by that dot there, and also a roll indicator shown by these wings here. So if we rolled it to the left or right, you would see that shown. The symbol also represents the pitch of the aircraft, so if I were to pull up, you can see it changing accordingly. We have the plus 30 degree pitch here, we would have plus 60 up there, minus 30 down there, and so on. And we have our heading tape here, so we're currently showing 030 degrees. We're not going to go any further into the HUD now because we're going to do a full video on that later. Next is the VDI. So along with the HUD, we would consider the VDI main attitude indicator. So it's going to tell us where we're climbing in relation, or diving in relation to the horizon line here. Also, it's going to tell us our roll. So that's the horizon line there, 10 degrees, plus 20 degrees, plus 30 degrees, 40 degrees, minus 10 degrees, and so on. Again, we've got our heading tape here. And if we were to maneuver, you can see wherever that dot is in the VDI is where our longitudinal axis of the aircraft is pointing. Level out there. Next, on to our turn/slip indicator here. So we've got this little bubble here that is telling us our slip angle. And the slip angle, we're currently flying pretty much straight, but if you rotated that plane 45 degrees to the right, but I imagine it was still flying directly up the screen, then that would have a right slip angle of 45 degrees. So to show that, what I could do now is unpause and give a little rudder to add some slip, and you can see we've got some right slip there. Okay, and it's very sensitive, so it detects very small amounts of slip. We've also got a turn indicator here at the top. So if we're going to turn, and we can do that with the rudder or with the roll, but you can see that we're now turning to the left by that amount. Okay. Next, we've got our airspeed Mack meter here, and I've got a real problem with this. As you can see from my natural sitting position, I can't see this at all, and it's an absolute nightmare. And it's already caused me accidents in the couple of hours I've actually got to fly this. As well as that, the airspeed writing in the centre is way too small. It would be nice if they had made that bigger so we'd actually see it, bearing in mind that, you know, we haven't got perfect eyesight here. We've only got 1080p to work with. It is similar or the same one as used in the A4E Skyhawk, if you have that module. And how it works is we have these needles here, and they point to, in this section here, our airspeed. So we're indicated airspeed of 315 knots or so, and that is equating to, at this altitude, this Mach around here. So we're currently at 0.55 Mach. And it's important that we've got the Mach shown out here, because when we're dealing with our wing sweep here, then it's all about learning what your wing sweep can be set to in relation to your current Mach. So having it shown here means we don't have to calculate it on the fly. If we increase speed, then this would... In fact, why don't we just do it? So increase speed, you can see 400, 500 knots, and so on. And when we get down past 200 knots indicated airspeed, then there's no more Mach, and the needle then represents these numbers here: 200, 150, 120, 80, down to 0 knots indicated airspeed. Now, I don't know what on earth they were thinking when they designed this aircraft, because your airspeed is absolutely critical. You must know it at all points. And it's not shown on the HUD, it's not shown on the VDI. And so to find out your airspeed in a dogfight, you've got to quickly look down here, try and decipher this weird gauge and kind of zoom in to find it. And hence, I have to fly this plane by feel. I can't use that gauge there. It's just impossible. Incredibly frustrating. My two really big problems with this aircraft, I find, and that's one of them. Next is your VSI, your vertical speed indicator. So this needle represents if we're climbing or if we're diving in thousands of feet per minute. So if the needle was there, we are climbing at 1,000 feet per minute. Next is your radar altimeter. So this shines a beam of radiation directly downwards, bounces off the ground, comes back and tells us how high we are off the ground. We also have a mark here. We can set our minimum altitude before an alarm goes off. So currently set at 500 feet above the ground. If the needle went down here and past that, it would then give us an alarm. We can change that by hovering over this and scrolling it left or right, or we can turn it off completely by scrolling off to the 0 and turning it off. This gauge is incredibly important if we have bad visibility and we're close to the ground. Next we have the servo pneumatic altimeter. So this is run by air pressure, a barometric altimeter. So just bear in mind, with an altimeter like this, it does not take into account undulations in terrain, so it will happily allow you to fly at 9,000 feet ASL straight into a 10,000 foot mountain. That's what the radar altimeter is for. The needle around the outside shows hundreds of feet, and we've got thousands of feet in here in the box here, so currently we're at 8,600 feet or 650 feet. This type of altimeter must be zeroed to the airport where you took off from, and so we have a knob here where we can set the QFE. That's the number here, and because it's an Imperial aircraft, that is measured by inches mercury. Next we're going to jump to the backup attitude indicator here, or artificial horizon as you might call it. So if this fails and this fails, then you've always got this, a steam gauge version. We can adjust and cage it. Next down here we've got our accelerometer, incredibly badly placed down here, very hard to see, at least for me. It goes up to 10 G's positive, minus 5 G's negative, and whatever your max or minimum G is, it will record it with this needle and this needle here for later analysis. We can reset it here with this button. Down here we have a clock. I don't know why a clock is considered a flight instrument, but it is in the manual, and the manual knows better than me, and we can adjust that as we see fit. Then, according to the flight manual, we also have a standby magnetic compass, and I've looked all around this cockpit and I cannot find it, so I don't know if I'm going absolutely mad, but I cannot find this magnetic strip compass anywhere. It would usually be somewhere up around here along the A pillar or along the HUD side pillar. So I must be going mad in my old age, but that's supposed to be there somewhere. So that is the end of what the flight manual considers the flight controls. However, I'd like to add a few more in there, because I think you really need a few more in there to fly properly. Your alpha, your angle of attack, incredibly important in any kind of flight, and that is showing our angle of attack there. And why don't we show that off? We just put ourselves in a quick climb. You can see we peaked up there about 25 or 30 angle of attack. Pause that again. And our wing sweep, we really need to know that quite often, so our wing sweep meter there. I would also personally like to know about it's not technically my throttle position, it's the RPM of the engines, and we've got a nice clean gauge there to see the RPM, currently just over 90%. And we're really pushing the mark here, but I guess I'd really consider the flap indicators, gear indicators, and gear lever as well here, just to ensure that those surfaces are as you expect them. So that's as far as we're going for the flight instruments. I hope that helps, and see you later.